that's a low budget film, and yet they built that house and they built that motel and they built all those sets. So I don't know how the money worked back then because we can't do that today.
Don't know how old we were when we watched this, but we all have phobias of shower curtains, right? Yes, raise your hands if you have a shower curtain phobia. Thank you, Alfred Hitchcock. But no, let's talk about it. Like, the first time you saw the film, however old you were, like, what did you remember about the film? Like, you're obviously a horror filmmaker now, but like...
Yeah, I mean, it's the shower scene. I think I was like 15, and it was in high school. I was taking this class that was like a film class. I went to public high school, and so it was like everyone just took the class so that way they could just like kind of nap. But I was like really interested in what was happening, and so they would like screen 20 minutes at a time, because the periods were 45 minutes or whatever. And so I like the teacher put on Psycho, and we watched 20 minutes, and everyone was asleep except me. And I went home that night because I was just so like riveted, and I watched it by myself, and it was so scary and just effective, and yeah, like we talked about, I've been afraid to take showers ever since. And if there's ever a shower curtain, I'm like certain that I'm probably gonna get stabbed to death that night.
Joseph, what about you?
I hate to say this, but Psycho was kind of ruined because people talked about it so much, and you knew about the shower scene, you knew about different things, so you would see pieces of it all over the place. So by the time I saw it, it was like seeing something you've already seen without having seen it, So it wasn't that shocking, to be very honest with you. And then you go to film school, and then they play it for you, and you're watching this amalgamation of things you've seen before. And it wasn't until like my fourth or fifth time sitting back and watching it at like just completely there, already knowing the plot, but then just really concentrating, and the movie came alive. Now I've seen it probably like 15 times, but it took me about 5 times before I got it.
Wow. That's so amazing. And I mean, I think there's so much more than the shower scene, right? Obviously there's the reveal at the end and this conversation, but like, the lasting impact of this film is that how it's influenced filmmakers. So talk a little bit about that, like how it's influenced, how has it influenced filmmakers since, whether it's creating that scary that shower type moment, or like the score, or the cinematography that we were talking about, or the editing, like
the pacing. Yeah, I think like the shower scene's easy to talk about in the pacing. We were just talking about it, just the way that it's like this frenetic cutting that puts you in the experience that the victim is having. And then suddenly, once she goes, you're with Norman. And it's really intentionally, I'm getting chills. It's really intentional, slow pace, like live with this horrible thing that happened. And it's so cool to do that to the audience. It's like killing the main character halfway through the film, not for the purposes of shock, but because it's going to just amplify the stakes that like that can happen. You're not safe. You, the audience. Scary as fun.
So for me, I think there's 2 things as a filmmaker that makes Hitchcock so amazing. The first thing is the reason he studied in film school is because he's so easy to break apart, because he's so formal, He's an engineer. He always says that he's visuals first more than anything else. And that's one of the reasons he wasn't respected for many years. It wasn't until Truffaut came and said, Hitchcock is your best director in America. He was considered a schlock director, And one of the reasons why is because he was technical. And if you watch every one of his movies, one of the most beautiful things about it is that you can deconstruct every shot, and every shot has meaning. And that's great for film school, But at the same time, every shot also has empathy. And that's the secret to his sauce versus every other technical director. It's like if you watch these movies of his, it's always shot through someone's point of view. Every scene is always through someone's point of view. In fact, one of the fun things about watching this, and it took me about 15 times to get there, is that I've noticed that every time he does a cutaway, it's on someone's perspective. It's always on someone's look. There's no cutaway that's just a random cutaway that we do today. Like today we'll do cutaways just to establish shots or tell information. There's no wasted moments like that in Hitchcock. every time he does a cutaway, it's someone's perspective. And he uses that constantly back and forth. I could go on and on. But the other thing I was noticing is like this viewing, one of the most amazing things about watching it this time is it's her perspective in the first 30 minutes of the movie and how he constructs that perspective. Like, like how she's driving in the center of the car, right? And he keeps cutting to the center of the car. And you're wondering, why is it framed like that? Because other people, sometimes you frame it to the left, you frame it to the right. You've got a whole screen. Why is it always in the center? Because you know why? Because when he cuts back to the other perspective, that's her perspective. So you constantly see back and forth what she's driving to and what she's doing. And you're like in her head. And the most awesome scene this time that I saw that was super mind-blowing was the scene where she goes and buys the car, Watch that sequence and look at what the camera is doing. It's everything from the way that she drives up and then it pans with her. And then when the cop comes in, right, and the cop is in a wide shot. When that wide shot happens, she's not looking at him, right? And so we, the audience, are now doing that thing that Hitchcock always says. Well, if you blow up a scene and just blow it up, you don't care. But if you had a bomb under the table and you show the audience the bomb, then the audience is thinking suspense, right? Well, the cop goes there, and we have that wide shot, and we, the audience, know the cop is there. She doesn't, right? But then at some point, she sees the cop, and then she starts walking away, and then that wide shot starts tracking with her from her point of view. And that scene converted that omniscient shot from our point of view into her perspective, and it's a magical transformation. And he's doing that. And so by the time we get to that shower scene, we are Marion Crane. That's why that shower scene is so effective, because it's not just some random girl. Like, we are watching the movie through our eyes. We're walking through it, and Hitchcock is there until she dies, And what's really fun about when she dies is, remember that perspective of the shower, right? It's her perspective of it, like, coming right at us. Well, he cuts to it after she's dead, So now you feel the emptiness of that shower. And he's literally saying, she's dead. That perspective is for no one anymore. Fuck you. So.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I
dude,
love
awesome.
that. Well, that's so amazing. I mean, Julie, you watched it this past weekend. Like, what was the scene that really struck you and that really stood out?
Oh, I just love the last shot of the movie. And I actually, for the first time this weekend, because I haven't seen Psycho 15 times, and obviously, Hitchcock is incredible, but it was really fun to revisit his work this weekend. And I noticed in that last shot, the skeleton. I had never noticed that before. I know that maybe it's an obvious thing, but I think it just, I was so swept up in the performance. So yeah, I mean, that last shot is just fucking phenomenal. And when you hear her voice, when we're in the hallway and we hear her go, thank you, it's just like, what a choice. Because you just know, again, you're talking about the suspense, and Hitchcock's the master of that. It's like, I'm going to give the audience this and then just draw it out. And that moment is just, it's just so tense, and the performance is incredible. He just turns. It's so good.
I watched Psycho 2, 3, and 4. And Anthony Perkins directs the third one. And it's funny because Anthony Perkins did it from an actor's point of view, right? And then Mick Garris directs 4, who's like a very visual director. And they got in fights because Mick Garris was being super visual, and Anthony Perkins didn't like that. But that's how Hitchcock did it, Yeah. But in 3, Anthony Perkins does the shot at the end with his face and the new dead mom. So.
I gotta watch that.
Now we gotta watch that. But I too, just watching this, I was like, wait, I've seen this so many times, and I'd never noticed the skeleton, the dead mom thing.
So scary.
Another thing that's so great about this film and Hitchcock is the way he made this house a character. You're in that house, and it is, without this, without that, the film would be completely different. Talk about that, and this incredible production design, and also just how he works that camera through the house.
So the movie was made for $800,000, which was nothing. Because before this, Hitchcock did North by Northwest, and he was basically the Steven Spielberg of his time. North by Northwest is Cary Grant. It's humongous set pieces. It's using the technology of the day. It's in color. It's lush. It's vivid. It's 1959. But Hitchcock had one thing going on at that time that was really interesting. He was 60 years old, and everybody said that he's basically old. His movies are old-fashioned, and there's all these new directors, in France. There was this movie that came out 5 years before called Diabolique. Have you seen that movie? The reason why is because for me as a visual director, it's not very visual. There's like one interesting shot where they pan, she enters the frame, then she goes in, and then we pull back and the door opens, and that's like kind of the climax of the visuals. And I think Hitchcock was watching this and hearing all these people say, "You're old. You're 60 years old. You're out of it. These guys have better, newer ideas than you." And he was like, "Fuck you," And so he went in there, and the last time he tried something new was Vertigo, and Vertigo was kind of a bomb. Now it's like one of the best films of all time, and we all recognize that. But when it came out, it barely made its money back. The critics trashed it, and he was on edge. Like, people thought that he was on his way out. So when he did Psycho, he put his own money into it, and it was done dirt cheap with like a television crew. And so, which is kind of incredible. Like, if that's a low budget film, and yet they built that house and they built that motel and they built all those sets. So I don't know how the money worked back then, because we can't do that today. If we did a low budget film, you're not building the Psycho house, nor are you building that motel. But he did that. So it's interesting that like the way he framed it and the way he set it up. Like, if you're like a visual director, you'll go, this is a guy that started off in advertising, because that's where Hitchcock started, right? Then he was an art director, and then he worked in silent films, and he was actually the first director to do a talkie in England, like the first British director to do an actual talkie with sound. But at his heart, he always like framed everything from a completely visual point of view. So that house is super designed. The way it's laid out from the motel to up there. I mean, these are the type of things that you make decisions on that you have to know where your camera is. Because they could have built that motel here. They could have done it there. So anyways, I think that like also the way that he frames it, you'll see that there's these shots. For the most part, I feel like Psycho is a very modern film. Like when you watch it and you're looking at the way that like the over-the-shoulder shots work, or the side angles work and stuff like that. Compare that to Diabolique, which still looks like some film from like the 30s, where everyone's sort of like staged in proscenium and like they're facing the camera every time they talk. This feels very modern. But on the flip side, he designed it in a way that he does these crazy camera moves. Like, remember the scene where it's like the camera suddenly goes up and then goes down, and then suddenly he grabs mom and walks out and stuff like that? All these sets were designed for the camera, and that's not what directors did back then. Well, nor they really kind of do it today anyways, but unless it's green screen.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. You have to, the planning that goes into building the set around the he had it mapped out, but that's what he did. He lost sleep in pre-production so that way he could have that. And yeah, like location as a character is incredible, especially in horror. Like, as soon as you see that house, immediately you're tense. And it's just incredible the way that he was able to do that, again, with a shoestring budget.
And I just love it that's a 60-year-old man going, "I will show all of you how something like this should be made." But
he did Vertigo before it, right?
He did. And
wasn't that kind of a fuck you too? Vertigo's
but he got trashed for it. It almost killed his career. And that's why Psycho couldn't get funded, because they thought he was making another Vertigo.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
There you go. We're getting a Hitchcock 101 here.
I know, my
love
God.
it. But the other thing was this film opened at a time when like movie theaters, they didn't have like scheduled times, right? Like, you could just go in and watch a film, and I think he was apparently like he got MGM to like stop people like from seeing the movie, from like going in at any point. It's like,
what a control freak. I love that.
Scheduled times,
well,
right?
to be fair, a lot of movies were doing that back then, like William Castle. Yeah. Like, they had things like this, I forgot, it was the chiller or whatever they call it, the tingler, right? And during the movie, they did all these gimmicks back then, where like suddenly, like in the middle of the movie, like this puppet would fly towards the screen, and people would throw smoke at the audience. And Diabolique had a whole thing at the end that, like, literally at the end credits, they beg the audience not to tell anyone what the secret of the movie is as they walk out. It's in the end credits, So Hitchcock comes from like it was the de rigueur of the time to do these like gimmicks, and Hitchcock was the master of that stuff. So
he did gimmicks.
Well, being in front of things, putting himself on TV, saying like, once the doors close, don't talk about it, and all that stuff. That's like kind of like the thing that was happening in the late 50s, 60s.
Well, to that, like, how did he change the horror genre? Because I feel like Psycho was a big turning point as far as like the horror genre.
Well, there's a debate on it, and they always go, there's a big debate about this, but I am fully in the camp that this is the first slasher. People say that other movies are slashers. They'll say something like one of his movies from 1927 is a slasher. No, this is straight up a knife. It doesn't penetrate, but it's slashing. Like, it's literally slashing on the screen in a way that you've never seen it before. And from that point on, maybe films have gotten more violent. You can actually see the penetration. Psycho 2, that, you know, Vera Miles, the heroine at the end, her sister, they offer in the worst way. Like in Psycho 2, they actually take a knife and you actually see it go through her throat and the back of her head. And that poor character is done. So those movies aren't real anyways. But the whole point is Psycho is the first slasher. So like from every movie that you see today, you know, from Freddy Krueger to Jason to whatever it is, it's all based on this.
Yeah.
Well, to that, like, you know, talking a little bit about your films, like, you know, how has Hitchcock, like, have you ever used a Hitchcock influence in any of your films?
Yeah, I mean, my movie takes place at a motel. And so, like, 100%, just I get, like, location as a character in everything that I've ever made, my shorts, I just love that as a concept. It's a visual medium, and the location should be helping you tell your story. So definitely I drew a lot of inspiration from that. Also just the way that the complexity of his characters, like across the board, but especially in Psycho with Norman Bates, like just like as the antagonist, just giving him those layers of psychological depth and trauma, and just like how he's able to enrich the lore by doing that. And I just want to know more about this place. What else has happened here? What happened to him? It makes for a real that's real psychological horror. So I agree with you, the first slasher for sure, but the complexities of the psychology are what really are modern about it. Like it's just that, he was the one that like really started that, because it's so layered, it's so deep.
His DNA is in every filmmaker that I study, from Spielberg to Scorsese to whatever. Like, and there's specific things like Scorsese, the cutaways from the point of view. That Scorsese takes that from Hitchcock and runs with it. You know, the blocking of the characters, the switching of perspectives inside the camera, how you turn an objective shot into a subjective. Spielberg does that day and night, you know? But then even something as simple, if you watch look at how the characters walk around on screen when they talk, right? They're always walking and then creating positions and new things. Even though it may look like really simple setups, the characters are walking around and deliberately blocking themselves. And then suddenly you'll get into a two-shot. And you know who does that? Wes Craven. You know, so he took that and integrated it. But the thing I noticed this time more than anything else, and this was kind of a new revelation for me. So when you watch Norman Bates, right? And Anthony Perkins, it kind of ruined his career because he's so good in it, you know? But if you watch his performance, there's something radically different about his performance than almost everybody else's. And that is the mid-transatlantic accent. Janet Leigh has an old-fashioned way of talking. It feels like an actress from the 40s. She has that affected voice that feels old. Like it's like in Howard Hawks films and all these other films, right? It's like this sort of it's not a real accent. People didn't really talk that way. They talked that way in the movies, right? But when you watch Anthony Perkins, he has a much more naturalistic way of talking. It's very like real. It feels like someone modern, you know? It kind of switches, like when he talks with her, it's like I feel like he ups it and starts talking mid-Atlantic because she's talking that way and actors can sort of gravitate. Or maybe it was a conscious choice on his part to play a person faking his way, being normal. But then every once in a while, you'll see him like sort of like do a throwaway line or like a chuckle or like a stutter or something like that. It feels so naturalistic and so unlike anyone else's acting. It's like when he's acting like abnormal, he's acting as normal as you can be. And to me, that style of acting is now very normal. Every Marvel movie does it. Like every actor is now trying to throw away their lines and say little jokes and stutter their way out of things and stuff like that. But Anthony Perkins does that in this movie. And it's like kind of like one of the first times I've actually seen it happen. And that's what makes his character so amazing and also kind of fucked up his career because now everybody believes he's that guy.
He's just so good at it, right? I want to come back to something you said earlier, Julie, about like the pacing, because I feel like, again, that too has been really influential to filmmakers, you know, and going back to that shower sequence, like, yeah, how has Hitchcock's pacing, not just in Psycho, Vertigo, North by Northwest, The Birds too, influenced filmmakers?
I mean, it's just intentional. Like it's nothing like it's the pacing is always driving towards something. And yeah, I mean, I think just you mentioned Vertigo, which is I watched it this weekend. It's so he's just he gives the audience that time to sort of sit with it and unpack it. And I think that like now there's a lot of horror now that's like just in your face, and you see a knife go through someone's mouth, even in Psycho 2. Like, and that's not scary. Like, scary is sitting with something as it unfolds, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And there's a cop watching, and she doesn't know that he's watching, and the bomb's under the table. Like, so I think, that's all part of the pacing. Like, obviously, there's the technical side of it, but I think it's in the writing as well. Like, it's just being able to build those stakes up and take your time with that world building. It feels more than just technical with him.
For me, I think cinema is when the camera, the audience, and the character all combine together, and they're all thinking on the same level. And Hitchcock does that. And so there are scenes where you could be observing the character, and it could just be done in a bunch of wide shots or medium shot or whatever, and the pacing of that would feel completely different. It would just feel like you're just watching a character from the outside. But when Norman Bates, as his mother, kills Marion Crane, and he goes back to clean the body, you'll see a pivot shot. It's like he walks in, and all of a sudden the camera tracks with him, right? And then he's halfway, and then he walks out, and we're dolling back with him. You know what's happening there? The pacing feels faster, even though it's the same amount of stuff that's happening that if you just watch it in master and medium shots and stuff like that. But because the camera is now integrated with him, we are now taking that journey with him. We are feeling the pressure of every movement. When he exits that room, we are exiting the room with him. When he goes to pick up the body, we are tracking with him to pick up that body. And when you're in motion with him, time speeds up, And it's funny, I watched a documentary on this, and David Fincher, who loves this movie too, said there's 3 things that the filmmaker is in charge of. I don't remember what the other 2 things are. He said pacing is like one of them, And he said Hitchcock is amazing at that. The other thing also is, it's funny, the one thing that I feel makes this film feel very antiquated is that Hitchcock uses a technique that modern filmmakers don't do. Remember like when you have that thing that goes into her eye after she's dead, and then we pull back off of her face, right? Then what ends up happening is the camera then suddenly, by itself, goes up, right? Then tracks over to the money under the table, right? And then deliberately then goes out the door into the thing, and you hear him go, "Mother," and you're looking at the thing, stuff like that. That type of camera movement doesn't exist in today's cinema because it's weird, It's literally like breaking a fourth wall, and it's literally calling attention to itself and saying, "I am Hitchcock, and I am now going to show you this, and I'm going to show you this, and I'm fucking Hitchcock," And the audience does not accept that, and that makes the film feel a little antiquated. But at the same time, the rhythm of that scene is awesome, because I'm interested. But I don't know if you can get away with that today.
Well, you're filmmakers. I want one of you to try that and see if you can get away with it. I'll be watching.
Maybe the Coen brothers do that. And
Tarantino.
Tarantino could.
He does things like, fuck you, I'm Tarantino. It's awesome. It's so cool.
We've got to talk about the score, because I feel like so much of this film, composer Bernard Herrmann, I mean, take that score away, again, you lose half of that thrilling aspect. How did that score impact you, and why was it so influential again in like creating those psychological scary moments?
I mean, it's the strings. It's quintessential. I don't know. It gets your heart pumping, and it's just unsettling. And again, it's just creating tone.
If you notice on the credits in the beginning, they list out like how normally like the writer is the second last credit, and then it says directed by. It's like written by, Aaron Sorkin. Then it's directed by David Fincher. That doesn't happen here. The second to last credit is music by Bernard Herrmann, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. That shows you his contribution. Because if you imagine watching this film, here's the thing. Like, you could say Hitchcock is a silent film director, right? And you could say, yeah, he thinks in visuals. But if you actually watch those silent films, they weren't played silently. They were played with music. So even from the beginning, Hitchcock was a music video director. He really was. Like, I spent 30 years being a music video director, and I go, that's a kindred spirit, And so he designed his stuff to be played with music. So that little shot where it goes up like this and goes like that, that's a point for Bernard Herrmann to do his thing, all those shots where it's like he's just running around and doing things, like Hitchcock is saying, here's some space, go rock it. And here's the other thing too, that's a punk rock score because it's so fast. You know, like if you listen to like music today, especially any of this mumblecore rap, it's vibe music. It's like it's the stuff to smoke weed to and chill, right? This score, you cannot you can't smoke weed to it. It's like
You could, but
you can't. Yeah. But it's like shrill and fast, and the BPMs are super fast.
Totally.
I mean, it's a rock score.
Yeah, it gets you to the
thrashing.
edge
It's
of the
thrash
seat.
metal.
Yeah.
I love that. I've never thought of it that way. Now you're gonna like drive home, listen to it, and be like, okay, there you go.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
No, I'm not gonna. I will not do that. I'm just curious, Julie. You said you watched Vertigo and the Birds. Like, what was that like visiting the birds? I've got to ask about.
We talked about that. Well, I saw The Birds when I was really young, and it's so violent. The Birds is like really bloody and really violent. So was disturbing, and again, just with the quick cutting, and the birds are in the house, and it's just the editing in that film is so fucking incredible. And really, what meant a lot to me now, again, revisiting his work, like before this, as a filmmaker, haven't seen his stuff since film school and as a child, but Vertigo, the colors, I mean, I know that's obvious, it's Vista Vision, but the way he uses red and green in that film is incredible and so modern. I mean, that movie must have blown minds when it came out to see those colors on screen. So I guess it's kind of baffling to me that he made Vertigo and then Psycho and then The Bird, like what a run. I mean, he's made a billion other amazing things, but just within like a 6-year span to make those 3 films, I just don't know how he found like the inspiration to do that. It's just otherworldly. It's incredible.
But to be fair, his run is like 50 years.
Of course, but those 3 in succession are just, I mean, to drop a black and white one in between Vertigo and The Birds is like, talk about a fuck you move. That's incredible.
My thing is, I think that Psycho was like the peak of Hitchcock, and from that point on, his films kind of lost footing, starting with The Birds, and Marnie and Topaz and all that stuff. They're like, what ended up happening is the world changed underneath Hitchcock. Hitchcock was the master of suggestion and titillation, but let's be honest, this is not going to titillate anybody today. It's like, these shower scenes and stuff like that, they're not, in a world of hardcore porn and like 24/7 and stuff like this film is really, really tame. But it was actually getting tame for the 60s at a certain point because the titillation of this one that almost got banned was that she was wearing a bra. The fact that they showed a toilet, which they never showed a toilet before, in a film before. And then what ended up happening after this got released in the 60s happened. By the end of that decade, you've got Bonnie and Clyde, and you've got like Sam Peckinpah, and you've got ultra-violence and Clockwork Orange and all that stuff. So, and Hitchcock, who was really part of a genteel British sort of formalism, like he really did become a man of time. His techniques didn't die, but his attitude and his sense of civilization got bypassed, and he just became an old man because as a 60-year-old man, he's a master of craft, but civilization is no longer in his world. He's not making films for that generation anymore.
That's so fascinating. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up, but I know you've both got films out, so tell us a logline about your respective films, and they're out next weekend.
Fantasia. That's a week from Thursday. My movie's called I Live Here Now, and it's about a woman in a motel in trouble.
There you go. Oh.
So I've got a movie called Ick, and it's being released by Fathom Entertainment. It's in 800 theaters on the 27th, 28th, and 29th of this month. I think it's super fucking awesome. Go watch it, buy a ticket, tell people to go see it. Please, thank you.
There you go. Love it. Well,
awesome. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you both for sharing insight into Hitchcock and Psycho and his work, and I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight.